What is an inappropriate question that many adults ask to children? Asking if another child of the opposite sex is their boyfriend, girlfriend. Why can't you be more like your brother, sister? Asking a question and rejecting any answer the kid gives, unless it's the adult's own opinion. Hi kids, do you like violence? Why won't you give me a hug at a family event where everyone is staring? My grandpa asked me, do you enjoy watching porn? I was 11. Asked by family most of the time, do you really want to eat that much? Do you want to make me sad? What screams I've never been poor to you? My sister makes over $100K a year. So does her spouse. My partner and I, however, make less than $100K together. When she found out we were looking into moving, she kept sending me places that were way over our monthly budget for rent. It didn't matter how many different ways I told her it was too expensive or what our max was, she'd just come back at me with, you just need to learn to budget. You can't budget your way out of money you don't have. So succinct, you can't budget your way out of money you don't have. This girl in my high school came up to me and asked me why I never went to any school events. And I told her I worked because if I didn't, I wouldn't go to college. And she deadass replied, my dad can pay for my college, working is lame. What? Everyone should travel the world, it's so easy. Here's a friend describe a problem that only money will solve. Replies with a pep talk about how they need to swallow their pride and ask their parents for help, because no decent parent who loves their child would let them be in that situation. You have to tell them. Then, if you say something like, the same parents who asked me for money yesterday, those parents, they don't believe stuff like that happens. Why are you trying to fix it? Just get a new one. They always look at people in really rough situations, and they ask questions that start with, well, why don't they just, followed by something that requires large amounts of money. What was the final straw? He was so selfish for years and made excuse after excuse for it, but he always put me last. I was ready to leave him, but we made one last big push to make it work. We did a lot of things together that I had been wanting forever. One of them was getting scuba certified. On our first big dive with a group after certification, he jumped out of the boat while I was still getting ready. The dive leader screamed at him and shamed him for abandoning his dive partner, warned him how unsafe it was for both of us, and just really laid into him. Finally, I get into the water, and we begin our descent. We get to 30 down, and I can't get my ears to clear. I signal to him that I need a moment to get acclimated before going any deeper. He sees what's happening, but just takes off, leaving me behind. I went back up to the surface, because now I'm basically just alone in the middle of the Caribbean and can't catch up with the group. At some point, the dive leader figures out what happened and lost his shit on my husband. Refused to let him get back in the water, because leaving your dive partner in a potentially life or death situation is apparently a no-no. Really made me wake up to the truth that he would never be there for me. Not ever. Not even for 2 minutes while I adjusted to the water depth. He would always choose his own selfish interests and leave me to figure it out on my own. Left when we got home. I wouldn't have left a perfect stranger I had met 30 minutes before the dive. That's fuck up to do to your wife. Got married to my ex-husband at 17 and was married for 20 years with 3 kids. He always had anger issues, but after 10 years of marriage, he started to become physically abusive to me, although never in front of our kids. I didn't leave, BC the abuse was borderline. He never punched me in the face or anything like that. He would push me down, grab me by the back of my hair, etc. One day I'm laying in bed with our youngest, who is 3 years old at the time. My ex comes rushing into the room, grabs me by my ankles, and swiftly pulls me off the bed onto the ground. I had been laying on my stomach, so when I landed on the floor, my face smacked into the ground, so I started crying hysterically. My 3-year-old was still on the bed, and not only became hysterical as well, but also ran to his dad and started attempting to punch him in effort to protect me. It was absolutely heartbreaking. I'm ashamed to say I didn't leave at that time. My son was 3, and I thought he would forget about the abuse he saw. My ex was always remorseful and agreed to start individual therapy as well as medication, which he did. The medication really seemed to be helping. However, about 6 months later, my 3-year-old son randomly tells the story of seeing his dad attack me to my parents. This was the first time he ever mentioned it, and I was really surprised he still remembered it. That was the last straw for me. When I realized my son was never going to forget what happened that day, he's almost 9 now, and he still remembers it. Edit. Wow, you guys are so amazing. Thank you so much for all the love and support. I never had an ounce of support from anyone while the kids and I were going through this. I had made my parents aware of the abuse long before my son told them that story. My mom's words were, "I think you should just feel lucky you found someone who will tolerate you." And another time, "Well, since you're not really hurt, I think calling the police would be dramatic, but you have always loved painting yourself as the victim." Even our marriage counselor never once took me aside and said, "OP, you need to get out of this marriage." He was insistent that we could manage our issues, abuse and all, successfully. All of my kids and I did go to counseling. All the kids took the split really hard. My older son, who was 15 at the time, started self-harming and using Xanax. I was extremely lucky to have gotten him into a great program. He spent 6 weeks in a mental health facility rehab, followed up with therapy once he got home, and still goes to therapy to this day. He is absolutely thriving now at 20 years old. All my kids seem very well adjusted at this point. I have been to therapy as well, but actually have my first EMDR therapy session scheduled for next month. As far as thinking my son would forget at 3 years old, I realize now that was an ignorant assumption to make. I myself have very early memories even before 3 years old, but I was always under the impression that for males, memories typically started around the age of 5. It never occurred to me that being so traumatic, it would obviously be stuck in his mind forever. But now that it's been pointed out to me, it makes perfect sense. Thank you all so much for your positivity and compassion. Thank you for taking the time to comment and share your own stories. When one friend privately tells you they are concerned for your health and safety, you dismiss them and adamantly defend your spouse. When 5 friends individually tell you they are scared for you, then you start to listen and to accept an uncomfortable truth. After 2 DUIs, multiple relapses, and a separation, we decided to work things out. I had to take my friend out of town to buy a car and told my husband I'd be home around 6. I was very excited to be early and surprise him. As I turned down our block at 5, I noticed his car coming down the block, stopped one house early, and tossed something in the dumpster. I waited momentarily till he pulled into the garage, then drove up to the dumpster. It was a beer can he tossed. He was drinking and driving with our kids after all of that. Came in and immediately tossed him out. The day my 2-year-old said, "Shut up, bitch," to me. I had endured 10 years of abuse in my marriage, but hearing my innocent child repeat his father's words was enough for me. I called a lawyer the next morning. Not me, but one of my best mates got divorced. They'd been obviously unhappy for a while, so it wasn't a complete surprise. I asked him exactly this question, and he answered. She was out with a couple of male coworkers. I began wondering if she was fucking them. Then I realized that I didn't even give a shit if she was. That was when I knew. I felt absolutely nothing for her anymore. Even the prospect of her fucking other guys didn't hurt or upset me. I guess that's different from most other stories here. There was no one big bang moment of abuse or threats or betrayal that stunned him into action. It was just a realization that she no longer meant a thing to him. What's a major company that you would drive into the ground if you had the chance to? Intuit. The amount of financial damage done to ordinary people by their payments to Congress to keep our tax system obfuscated defies comprehension. Xfinity, health insurance companies. Purdue Pharma. As long as the Sacklers lose everything, I'd be happy. Meta, Zuckerberg is a wanker. What's the most valuable piece of advice you've ever received? You could be the sweetest peach in the tree, but some people just don't like peaches. The graveyards are full of irreplaceable men, yet the world keeps on turning. Don't take yourself too seriously, Dad. There is no shame in admitting when you don't know something or when you need help with something. Dad, if someone is being passive-aggressive, take it at face value. Pretend what they are saying is sincere and respond accordingly. They will think you don't realize their true intention, which will piss them off, or it will force them to be direct and most likely display that they are a huge asshole for all to see instead of a low-key, possible asshole. For example, a bitter and resentful coworker passive-aggressively says, "Congrats, you deserve it more than anyone," after you got the promotion instead of them. Respond with a big "thank you so much," as if you really thought they meant it. Have fun. Don't be shy. Nobody cares about you, so don't act like they do. Intelligence requires the acknowledgement of ignorance. If you had a friend who talked to you like you talk to yourself, how long would you be friends with them? Well, that's another episode of Ask Reddit in the books. I really appreciate all of you who made it this far into the video. Of course, if you enjoyed this video, it would really help the channel out a lot if you gave the video a thumbs up, subscribe, or leave a comment down below. I hope that you enjoyed it, and I'll see you next time.